Hi, welcome to episode 3 of Season 1, Everyday NLP Bites. Welcome back if you've watched the first 2, and welcome for the first time to any new listeners or viewers. You're very welcome. My name is Florence Madden. I'm an NLP trainer and coach based in Cumbria in the north of England. I'm also the author of a book called The Intention Impact Conundrum that is based on a course that I run in the Lakes called Personal Effectiveness at Work, and also the co-author of Everyday NLP, a book that I co-wrote with my friend and associate Eleni Sarantanou of Life Spheres. In this third episode, which I've entitled Mind Your Language, the Power of Words, I'm exploring a little more of the L part of NLP, the linguistic part, and just taking a little chunk out of that just now that I think, and I hope, will be quite useful to you. In episode 1, you may remember I talked about the unconscious mind and the fact that the unconscious mind, in other words, the part that we're not consciously aware of in the moment, determines more than 90% of our behaviour. And language has a particular effect on the unconscious mind, and that's what I want to focus on in this episode. I was watching the television one evening a little while back, and a Premiership football captain was being interviewed prior to a big match. Now, he was already kind of hunched over as he was speaking. And as he was talking about the match, he was talking in a really downbeat way, and he was using words about the difficulty it was going to be and the struggle it was going to be. Now, I don't follow his team or indeed his sport, but I felt a little dispirited just listening to him. And then one of the journalist present asked him about one of the star players in the opposite team, and he sat up. He became a great deal more animated and talked about what a brilliant player he was. Now, they actually went on and lost that game. Now, I can't tell you that it was simply because of his language, and nor do I even know that that's how he speaks to his team when they're privately getting ready for a match or at any other time. What I can say is that if I was part of his team, I wouldn't have been overly pleased to have to listen to that. And I wouldn't have been particularly motivated either. So the power of language is something that's been known for a long time. And a particular group of people that are very aware of the power of language are politicians. Politicians are speaking to hundreds of thousands of people, most of which they'll never ever meet. So how they get their message across is particularly important. And I suppose when you think about it, people still talk to this day about Winston Churchill, they talk about John F. Kennedy. Back then and now, politicians use professional speechwriters, people that know how to frame the language, not just to get across the specifics, but also to convey particular emotions. Because their words touch people, and they know that. The issue that we can face is that sometimes we can use language in an unknowing way. I talked before about this idea of patterns of behaviour, but we also have patterns of speech. Probably patterns of speech we've been using all our lives, and sometimes not actually realising what it is that we're saying to ourselves or to other people. For example, if you have a friend or a colleague that is going for an interview and they're a bit concerned about it, or perhaps going for a doctor's appointment and concerned about it, often we say in a well-meaning way, "Don't worry, it won't be too bad." Or maybe if you've got your children around a swimming pool and they're running, then what you'll say to them is, "Don't run, it's dangerous." On another occasion, you might have a colleague who's perhaps not particularly good in their timekeeping. And with regards to a meeting, you may say to them, don't be late. Now, all of those statements are made in a really well-meaning way. The problem is what the unconscious does with those words when they hear them. On courses, I illustrate this point by saying to people on occasion, don't think about Judy Garland. Now, often, I suppose, whether they're teasing me or not, people say, oh, who's Judy Garland then? So whether they're teasing me or not, the point is that Judy Garland wasn't in their mind and wasn't in the conversation before I introduced it. So the unconscious mind is ignoring the don't think about. It is focusing on the Judy Garland. So notice what you're saying when you say to somebody, don't worry. You're introducing worry, or you're reinforcing the worry that was already there. When you say to your children, don't run, what their brain is hearing is run. Or you say to a colleague, don't be late, their brain is hearing be late. So it's good to become aware of the language that we're using to ourselves and other people. Now, someone who was a really good wordsmith was Muhammad Ali, the champion boxer. He knew a lot about the power of language, both to motivate himself and the effect it could have on other people. Now, whether you're a boxing fan or not, most people have probably heard his affirmation, I am the greatest. Now, he was saying, I am the greatest, long before he was a champion. He was saying it whilst he was, and he was saying it to the end of his days. Now, to be a championship boxer, a champion anything, just using the words isn't going to get you there. You have to be eating the right things and doing all the things that you need to develop your art. But it's about developing the mindset alongside that. Ali also knew the effect that language could have on other people. Now, back in the 1970s, there was a very famous fight in Zaire called the Rumble in the Jungle, where Muhammad Ali was fighting George Foreman. And in the heat and humidity of Zaire, George Foreman was struggling, and Ali was fit and obviously in better fettle than George Foreman was. And allegedly, when they were doing that huggy thing that boxers do, what Ali whispered in George Foreman's ear was, a hell of a bad time to get tired, George. I'm not sure what effect that had on George, but had I been in his position, I'd have wanted to throw in the towel. So we can use language when we're more mindful about it. We can use language to really boost ourselves and indeed boost other people around us. So it's worthwhile thinking about how you're speaking to yourself. So, for example, just consider the difference between saying, on the one hand, I'm feeling tired, or alternatively saying to yourself, I could do with more energy. Notice the difference in the language there. I'm recording this during the coronavirus crisis, when a lot of people, including myself, are spending an awful lot more time with technology than we normally would. And I've heard a number of people say, I'm useless with technology. And I'm wondering what difference it would make that instead of saying that and the message that's giving to the unconscious, that if they change that language to, this current situation is forcing me to get even better with using technology. Again, giving a completely different message. And there's something else. Another one of the prime directives of the unconscious to be aware of here. not alone does it not process negatives, but when it hears something, it looks to prove us right. In episode 1, I talked about the interpretation that the unconscious makes of the language that comes in, and I referred to that as like a filter. So when we say things like, I'm useless at something, we are setting up the unconscious to go filtering for that thing, being useless at technology. And of course, the more evidence that it can present to us, the more that is emphasizing the point that we made. In other words, speaking about ourselves in that self-deprecating way can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So just notice the language. I have a little quote here, which I'm going to read. A number of people have, this has been attributed to Margaret Thatcher, it's been attributed to Gandhi, but actually I believe it comes from a man called Frank Outlaw, who was the founder of a very successful supermarket chain in the United States. But what he said was, and I say it's been quoted by a lot of people since, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, for it becomes destiny. So notice your language and think about how you can change how you speak to yourself and how you speak to other people around you rather. So thank you for listening. You can get more information, as I've said previously, on my website, www.florencemadden.co.uk. And of course, my books, The Intention Impact Conundrum and Everyday NLP, are available on Amazon. I hope you'll join me for the next episode, which is also around making changes. And I've entitled it, How Do You Need to Flex? I hope you'll join me then.